All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone. My name is Hannah Khan. I am the founder and clinical director of the Bloom Center for Motherhood, and you are tuned into our Wellness Wednesday series that we do once a month on a Wednesday. And the point of Wellness Wednesdays is to be able to share with pregnant postpartum moms in our community tips, resources, expert advice from wellness professionals that specifically work with pregnant and postpartum moms, dads, parents, families, caregivers. And so today, I'm so excited to have with us Sun Rabbit Yoga Michelle Winick. Thank you so much for being here to Michelle.
Yeah,
So
thank you for
you
having me.
yeah, we're so excited. So Michelle offers yoga, Pilates. By the name, her classes are Baby and Me, and she offers Pilates, dance, and yoga, and they're open to moms and dads. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, we love
Yeah.
welcoming dads as well into our classes, and babies ages 0 to 5 are always welcome, and we meet you where you are. So come as you are. That's okay. We've all been there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell us where your studio is.
Sure. So we work with Black Swan Yoga, so we're partnered with them. So we're over by Lower Greenville off of Skillman Avenue.
Awesome, awesome. And so if you go to her website or her Instagram page, you'll find all her classes there. And today we're going to spend some time talking about yoga and how yoga is so beneficial for mom's mental health. And then we'll talk about just some misconceptions around yoga, whether it's prenatal or postnatal or, during pregnancy. And then we'll also leave you with some tips and some, easy practical ways that you could incorporate yoga in your day to day without needing to carve out like a chunk of time to make it as simple as possible because we all know how busy moms are with their babies and just with their day to day. Awesome. So, when it comes to yoga, I think, as a mental health clinician myself, and I also did my yoga teacher training some years ago, there's so much value in how regulating yoga is for the mind and the body. And I utilize it in, in a mental health perspective, like in our mental health sessions, and also in our the Bloom Center's intensive outpatient IOP program, we incorporate that because we understand how important it is to help moms regulate and help teach them simple skills to regulate. So let's talk a little bit about how regulating and how beneficial yoga is for moms from your perspective, from the moms that you've worked with, moms or dads or caregivers that you've worked with. What have you seen? How has this been beneficial to these moms and dads?
Yeah, and I've experienced it myself too. I've really found that yoga supported my mental health and physical well-being throughout my pregnancy. I had hyperemesis, so I had a rough pregnancy. So it really was something that, like you said, regulated and grounded me. And then throughout motherhood, I found that it looks a lot different than prior to motherhood. It's not always getting and showing up to a physical class for an hour, but finding ways to weave just a few mindful moments and breaths into my day. And, no mat required for that, no hour-long class, but really to focus on feeling calmer, more balanced, and more present. I think as a mom, feeling present can help slow things down when you feel like the days are long, but the years go quick, I think is the saying, something like that. I think really being able to feel present in the moment helps so much with being able to connect with your baby as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head, being present in the moment. Because a lot of times when moms are anxious, right, they're in the future. They're future tripping is what I like to
Yes.
call it, about like, what if this doesn't go well? What if something happens? What if this doesn't happen? What if that doesn't happen? So they're really not present in the moment and they're future tripping. And so helping them recalibrate back to centering themselves to where they are and paying attention to that breath, right? Like, I think one of the
Yes.
most powerful tools that we walk around every day with is our breath. And if we can learn to regulate our breath, it can change our entire day. It can change our mindset. It can change the way our day goes, and how we feel about certain things if we can learn to pay attention to our breath and learn to regulate it, right? And I think that's a big part of yoga. Yoga isn't just, and I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit here with some of the myths, but right, we sometimes think that yoga is just inversions, cool poses, right? Like that's what we think yoga is, but yoga is so much about really that breath, body, mind connection and being able to really pay attention to that, right?
Yeah.
Versus being in certain poses.
Yeah, I like to say that it helps reconnect us to our bodies, especially as women, which can feel foreign after pregnancy and birth. It can feel like your body's completely changed. So it helps us notice our thoughts too. And I call it being swept away by them. So instead of getting swept away, with thoughts and what's next and the list of things to be done, it kind of again brings you back to that present moment and really helping support mental health through giving yourself permission to pause. So, regulating your nervous system through your breath. And by doing that, you lower your stress hormones, you slow your heart rate down. It helps us really return to a sense of safety and then again brings us back to that present moment. And like you said, yeah, breath work is really the foundation of yoga. We call it pranayama in yoga. It's really referred to as our life force. So when we're feeling anxious and overwhelmed and the dog is barking, and that's just the last thing to just tilt you over the edge and say, I'm going to lose my mind today. That's when you need to say to yourself, like, okay, I need to breathe before I do anything else. I need to stop, pause, take a breath. And that really can help reset your whole mindset about things sometimes.
Yeah, I think too that to your point, when we're able to reset, give ourselves permission to pause when all that's going through our heads, when we take that time to pause and be present and ground ourselves, it actually helps us gain more clarity with whatever it is that we're trying to figure out, the decision we're trying to make, or the tension or the stress that we're experiencing, whatever that might be. It helps us get a little bit more clarity on what's going on, what I need to do to move forward, or where am I stuck, right? But when we aren't present and we aren't taking that moment to pause and regulate, then it's just this hamster's wheel that's just spinning in our heads, right? And then we can't think with clarity during that, right? And then this helps us find a little bit of that pause and clarity in thought. It's like it kind of defogs your brain a little bit, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that goes back to when we are anxious and overwhelmed, our breath will become really shallow and fast. So we start to and that's really interpreted by our bodies as danger and it keeps us in that flight or fight mode. And especially as moms breastfeeding, you're already so, high with your hormone levels and everything that you are, more responsive to things. That danger, going back to like our cavewoman instincts is that noise that you hear, is that a bear coming for my baby? Like that's the instinct that's in us that we kind of forget about sometimes. So taking ourselves out of that flight or fight mode where we consciously slow our breathing will really send those signs to the brain to say, I am safe. I'm in a safe environment. I can take a breath. I can calm down. And that's where we see the shift occurring where our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest mode, which lowers our cortisol levels and releases our calming hormones like oxytocin, really kind of come into play and really do have a scientific impact. I know some people who may have never tried yoga, sometimes it gets a weird rep, as being hippy dippy or whatever, but there is definitely a science to it.
There's so much science, there's so much wisdom, and there's like from just my work and my training experience, there's like institutes that really, talk about the vagus nerve and how regulating it is for the nervous system when our body is in certain positions where energy is flowing in different ways, right? So there is a lot of wisdom and science that helps explain how yoga is so beneficial and regulating for the nervous system. And, to your point earlier about how anxious, we can get about certain things as moms, that fight or flight or that danger or needing to be safe or is my baby okay? Am I okay? That is amplified in your postpartum period, right? Like we're just on overdrive with all of that. And we're constantly thinking about, is my baby safe? Am I safe? Is my baby gaining weight? Is everything okay? Like these are common questions that are always on a mom's mind, and they can be very overwhelming. And when they're chronically occurring without that moment of pause, without that regulation, right? Because every mom is going to be anxious at some point. We're not
Course.
saying that that's like that we shouldn't or that we need to stop that. Like every mom, we're human. We're going to feel anxiety. We're going to get worried about certain things, especially as a first-time mom. That's very normal, it's expected. But when that happens chronically without moments of pause, without phases where we're able to regulate ourselves and find safety and comfort in those periods and recalibrate, when we aren't able to do that and we're chronically stressed, that's when things start to really spiral. And clinically, that's when we start to see significant anxiety, significant OCD, right? Like that's when that starts to come up even more is when it's chronic and we aren't able to give our brain and body that break that it needs to be able to regulate. Everybody, everything, every machine needs a break from that chronic stress overload, right? And we're, as humans, we're no different. We also need that. And when we don't get that, it spirals into things that are harder then to address.
Absolutely. I always say that yoga doesn't ask you to be calm all the time. That's not the goal of it. It simply offers you the tools to help you return to calm when life gets messy. So sometimes it can look like, rolling out your mat at home, maybe after baby goes down for a nap or at the end of the day for sleep, and getting a stretch on your mat and doing that. But it can also look way different. Like finding those little moments to breathe. While you're waiting for your coffee to brew or while you're heating up a bottle, if that's whatever it is, just taking those little moments to catch your breath. And I always like to say, take 3 slow breaths. So one for your body, one for your mind, one for your heart, and then start to breathe. So you take three and then you're starting to breathe because they say that it actually takes 10 full breaths to start to reduce. So just starting with the three is great. But my favorite tool that I love to teach all the time is using a hand mudra. So a mudra is just simply connecting two of your fingers together and relaxing. So going into a comfortable position. I'm going to leave my hands here so you can see, but normally I would just rest them on my legs. And then you can close down your eyes and you take a big inhale, a big exhale, another big breath in. And on your exhale, you'll switch and match your thumb with your middle finger instead. And you keep repeating that all the way down and then all the way back, getting in at least 10 breaths. And then just take those last 3 breaths and you will feel so much better. It's one of my favorite tools.
Yeah. And if we think about like, gosh, will that make me feel better? Yes, your brain is getting signals. When your brain's getting more oxygen, your brain is able to feel that safety again. It's prolonged, right? And so yes, it
Yes.
does work. There is a scientific reason why it will work, and it will help calm your nervous system down. So since you brought up mudras, tell us a little bit about the purpose of the mudras and in the purpose in touching your fingertips.
Yeah, so it's really to focus the mind and energy in a certain way. So in Indian culture as well, they really find that a different connection helps with all different things. So your thumb and your index finger is for concentration. So a lot of times if you see people meditating, you'll see that's like a very common mudra. Um, but I also like this technique where you go through each finger because you're really passing through all the different channels as well and redirecting your energy through different channels of the body.
Yes, yes. And I love how, again, it helps you stay present, right? When you're doing this, you're intentionally moving from one tip to another. And, your energy goes where you put it. And so if we're putting our energy in these tips and intentionally doing this, that contributes to how you're regulating yourself and how it all aligns in this way when you're regulating your breath.
I will
I
say
love
for
that.
that, you do have to be in a calmer mindset, and it does take, a minute to do that. So another, if you're already feeling very anxious and you feel like you're at a place where you need to be able to bring your own first before you could take those 10 full deep breaths. Another great breathing technique is trying to lengthen your exhales to be longer than your inhales. So if you are pregnant, we don't recommend holding the breath. So meaning that you don't retain the breath, you just breathe in for a count of four. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then maybe you exhale for a count of 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you try to keep repeating that, lengthening the exhale maybe with each breath. If you're not pregnant, if you're in your postpartum period, you can inhale through your nose for a count of 4, 3, 2, 1, and then hold that breath for 2, 1, and then exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you ever find yourself in a state where you're feeling that anxious energy and you need to release it, inhaling for 4, holding for 2, exhaling for 6. Nice and slow.
I love that. And what you're showing us here is this controlled breathing, right?
Yeah,
Going from, like we talked about earlier, right? When we get anxious, we're hyperventilating, our breath is very shallow, maybe it's constricted, right? So it's not freely flowing. And so this allows our breath to recalibrate and to slow down, and it's very controlled. And that is
yes.
how you're able to do that when you just keep a count check of how slowly you're inhaling and how slowly you're exhaling. I love that. These are
Yeah.
some great tips that, Michelle already talked about two of them, right? That you could incorporate, in your day to day. And you said something earlier, like you could do this while you're warming up your bottle. You could be doing this while you're just, waiting or just holding your baby while your baby's nursing. Like there's a lot of different ways that you could incorporate this in your day to day that doesn't require you to even pull out a mat for that matter, right? These are very much things you can do on your chair, in the kitchen, wherever you are when you need a moment. And that's, I think, the beauty of, again, utilizing our breath as a regulation tool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think breathing like this really helps us to respond to our children too and ourselves with just more patience. Because sometimes when you get anxious and you get tired and all of the things that we experience during motherhood, I should mention I have a 2-year-old myself, so I do speak from experience with it. It also, you'll see that it reminds us that calm is contagious. So the more you're able to regulate yourself and remain calm, your baby will see that. They will mimic that. They are little monkey see, monkey do. And if you are calming yourself, they will sit down with you. They will take a breath with you. Um, I love teaching, my son. So what I do is mommy me yoga. So I teach him how to breathe too. And it looks very different for him, of course. We used a book that had flowers in it that was scented. So he would, and it said smell the flowers. So he smells the flowers and he gets that reinforcement of the nice smell from the book. And then so when he's having, a toddler moment where we need to calm him, like, okay, Logan, smell the flowers. Okay. And then with him, I really exaggerate my breath now that he's a little bit older. So I'll take a big, and he does it back. They really will mimic a lot of what you do.
Yes, yes. I love how you brought in an aspect of parenting into this because there's a lot of moms who could be pregnant and have toddlers at home, or, right, like they have other kids that they have to also take care of while they're caring for their baby or themselves. And I think parenting, a huge part of helping parents regulate their kids who are very dysregulated, a big part of that is being regulated yourself as the parent, right?
Absolutely.
Because we don't want two dysregulated people in the room versus one adult is regulated and one child isn't. And so, how do we help parents regulate their children and regulate themselves before that, right? And so, um, I love your idea of, inhaling the scent of the flowers. So in my work I'm also a registered play therapist. So I work a lot with young children who have emotional and behavioral dysregulation. And one of the most common things that I will talk to parents about to, place in their homes or just have available is bubbles. It
Huh.
does exactly that, right? It helps you take a deep breath
The
and
blowing bubbles,
blow
yeah.
into blowing the bubbles. And they love it. It's fun. And so I have like bubbles in my office as well for that reason. It's one of my favorite tools for kids because I think every doctor's office should have bubbles in their, in their waiting rooms, because again, it's by default regulating for kids because they're taking a deep breath and blowing this nice long exhale to get those bubbles out, right? So I think these are all great tools, great items that you can incorporate, integrate in your day to day, whether it's, sniffing scents of flowers, or just essential oils or
Yep.
bubbles, right? So these are all great things that you can incorporate in your day to day for yourself as well as for your
Yeah.
young children at home, right? To kind of pass that on to them as well. Yeah, awesome. Well, I know we're close to getting being done here today, and I want to make sure we've got some great tips that Michelle shared with us that you can incorporate. One, last thing I just want to mention, there are sometimes some myths around yoga that I feel like are important to talk about, like whether it's during, yoga during pregnancy or even after. What are some myths that you come across that you'd like to really kind of lay the land about? Like this is, what the myth is and how, this is debunking the myth.
Yeah, with pregnancy, it really is dependent on the person, but a lot of times people say, stick with your regular routine, but prenatal yoga is something that OB-GYNs will recommend people start during pregnancy, even if they've never done yoga before, because it is designed with modifications in mind to keep it safe for the pregnant woman. So even if you've never done yoga, being pregnant is a great time to start. And it will really help you, learn that breath control for labor and delivery, and also help you become more in touch with your body. So when you start to push, all of those things that the body is going to experience, it will help prepare you for that. Better than, most things really will. And then with postpartum, in our society, it's this whole, can't do anything till 6 weeks, but I think that that's a little bit drastic, and again, it depends on the person. Of course, if someone had a C-section, I'm not recommending you jump back in and get out there and go crazy. But, the breath work and being able to just breathe in ways that help knit your abdomen back together really is where to start with yoga postpartum. So trying to really use those exhales where you're pulling your navel to your spine, really emptying all the air out, filling up all the way on your inhales. And again, just repeating that to help kind of, shift things back to where they were. And I think those are kind of the two misconceptions. So I would say start yoga, prenatal yoga, anytime during your pregnancy. There's no time too early or too late. You could be due tomorrow, and hey, maybe you take one prenatal class today and you learn the breathing techniques that help you push easier. Worth it. Postpartum, yeah, definitely start when you feel ready, not when, you feel like you're being told to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. You could be at any point in your pregnancy and what you learn, and each class, right, is very, right, Michelle, very customizable to what is going to work for you, right? Like in a class full of moms, you might be at a certain place in your pregnancy, and another mom may be at a different place, but it's still going to be what you need and what you need to learn right now based on kind of where you are in your pregnancy. And so, whatever you do learn can help when you do need those moments of calm, when you do need those moments of clarity to just defog, for a moment, and also to regulate, especially during moments of stress. And we all know, right, as moms postpartum, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of overwhelm. So, we need all the tools that we can get to be able to regulate ourselves when we need it the most, right? And these are things that you could do at that 3 a.m. feed when you're feeling nervous and a little, worried about something, or bedtime, like right when evening sets in, they call it the witching hour, bewitching hour,
Yeah.
when it's time for
Yeah.
bedtime, right? Like these are all moments where moms tend to feel very anxious, and we could totally utilize tools like this to help relieve some of that anxiety and to be able to get through those moments and trusting that you will get through them.
Yeah, absolutely. I always try to remember that the way that we want to nurture our children, we also, as moms, are allowed to and deserving to nurture ourselves too.
Absolutely, absolutely. We need to care for ourselves just as much, and that's a big part. We want to make sure that we prioritize wellness for ourselves as we're taking care of our babies.
Yep, what's the saying? Can't pour from an empty cup.
That's right, right. And these are this yoga is a great way to refuel and refill that cup. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. This was so nice. And I hope the moms that tuned in were able to learn some really easy, simple tips that they can incorporate in their day to day, understand the importance of how yoga can be so beneficial to them. And not just yoga, the breath work, mind, body connection. We can't leave out this piece when we're, supporting moms who are pregnant and postpartum, right? This is our body's a huge part of us and how we function in our day to day. And so I hope all of our listeners got a chance to learn that. And if you have any questions, you know where to find Michelle. I'll be sure to leave her information in the notes at the bottom here. But definitely check out her page. Check out her classes that she offers. She's got a wealth of knowledge, and it looks like this is exactly what she does, works with caregivers, moms, dads, and babies. So thank you so much, Michelle, for being here. And we hope to see you all at our next Wellness Wednesday. Bye for now.
Thank you.